What's up guys, Sean here, and this is the Reate Horizon D full review. The knife in my hand right here is the Smoky Mountain Knife Works exclusive CPM M4 Spyderco Paramilitary 2 with custom titanium reptilian engraved scales from Metin Boss, a green anodized titanium backspacer with a integrated lanyard tube from Rockscale Design, and I have green anodized titanium screws to match it, and those were done by my buddy Angelo over at the MILLIE Club. And yeah, this is a pretty badass setup right here. So let's get into this. First, I'm going to show you guys what I'm carrying today, and then we are going to approach this with my standard review format with my 25 categories of all the things that I rate and judge a knife based off of. So let's go over a couple quick specs. We have a blade length of 3.8 inches with a cutting edge of 3.75 inches. That is a good ratio of cutting edge to blade length. We have a closed length of 5 inches, overall length of 8.75 inches. We have a blade stock thickness of 157 thousandths, and it weighs in at 4.98 ounces. Now this knife is produced and manufactured by Reate Knives, which does happen to be in China. So if that is a problem for you, I do understand. I am definitely not a supporter of China. However, Reate Knives as a company, they do an amazing job when it comes to fit and finish and quality and just every aspect of knife making. They do exceptionally well, and from what I understand, they aren't bad people either. So, every country has corrupt governments, and that doesn't necessarily make the people of their country bad people. A lot of people in the United States are good people, and they don't agree with what our own government does, just like myself. But, that's not what we're here to talk about. This is not a political channel. This is a knife channel. So, got to get back on topic. You can buy this knife for $425 for the basic standard configuration, which includes a blue anodized titanium pivot collar and pocket clip instead of the anodized Moko tie clip and pivot collar. Now, if you do want the upgraded pivot collar and pocket clip, it's going to cost you an extra $100, putting this knife at $525. Now, with everything said and done, I don't think that's too bad of a price for what you're getting right here. I mean, especially when you're taking materials into consideration, you are getting magnificent, excellent, top quality fat carbon scales, Arctic Storm, absolutely beautiful. You're getting anodized titanium hardware and backspacer, and it's a big backspacer, almost enclosing over 50% of the back of your knife. You're also getting a milled titanium pocket clip and a titanium frame lock with a steel lock bar insert and a over travel stop, which is integrated in it. Now, as if that was not impressive enough, they also did a Arctic Storm fat carbon inlay in the titanium lock side, which is completely seamless. So this is a very impressive knife as far as manufacturing goes, and their fit and finish, their quality control. I don't think I could find one imperfection on this entire knife. So let's get into the categories and what I rated them. First category is ergonomics, where I gave this knife a 5 out of 5. This knife is very ergonomic, very comfortable in hand. We have a nice contouring to the scale. It has chamfered edges all around, nice and smooth, so there are no hot spots. We have some nice, well spaced out, nice smooth rounded jimping right here to give you a little bit of added traction without being too harsh on your thumb, and you just feel really locked in with this knife. The next category is the clip, and this also scored a perfect 5 out of 5. We have a milled titanium clip right here. Well, actually this one is Moko Thai, which is a type of Damascus, and it is absolutely beautiful. But not only does it look good, it also functions really well. This clip slides in and out of your pocket very easily. It's also very sturdy, absolutely no flex to it whatsoever. So this clip is very nice. The next category is carry, and this scored a 5 out of 5 once again. This carries really well. That has a lot to do with the nice thin profile. There's no added humps or lumps coming out of either side. The flipper tab is not obnoxiously huge, and all the corners are nice and chamfered and rounded and smooth, so there are no sharp corners that are going to be poking you, pressing into your leg or anything like that. It takes up about a little bit less than half of your pocket space, and that is fine for me. It doesn't feel too heavy in pocket. You know you're carrying a large knife, but it does not bother you in any way. So moving on to hot spots. This knife also once again scores a perfect 5 out of 5 because this knife has absolutely no hot spots. Everything feels good in hand. There is nothing, no part of this knife that's gonna irritate you in any way. Moving on to the action. This knife lost a point, so it gets a 4 out of 5. This has a strong, dependable action. If you press this flipper tab, that blade is coming out no matter if you try to press it with force or you try to press it easy. And that has a lot to do with how strong the D10 is. And the reason that I docked it a point is because, one, this flipper tab is a little bit uncomfortable after several flips, but that's only because of the shape and the jimping on it, which that adds to the reliability. So, it's give and take when it comes to these things. Do you want a flipper tab that's going to work every time and your finger's not going to slip off of it, and it's designed in a way that allows for a really strong detent to where that blade is going to fire out with authority every single time? Or would you rather it be, small and rounded over to where it's hard for you to get the traction to fire it? So it's not really that much of a negative, but it's something to note. This knife is on bearings, and it is actually a multi-row bearing system. Very smooth action. Moving on to the detent. This knife is going to get a 4 out of 5, and it is very nice and snappy and crisp, but it's just a little bit too strong in my opinion, and it might be a little bit bothersome to some people. Next category is the hardware, and this gets a perfect 5 out of 5 because we have all TORX hardware and it is all the same size, and these screws happen to be T8s, which is a great size. Maybe T10 would be even better, but at least T8 is a size that is large enough that your chances of stripping the screws are reduced a good bit compared to say T6. So that's really nice, and all the hardware is titanium. And not only is it all titanium, but they did a really good job with the anodizing. All the color is very bright and does not require Windex and polishing and all that, all those little tricks to make it look good. After handling this knife, for days, weeks, whatever, the color in the titanium still looks good. So that is what I like to see when it comes to anodized titanium. Some companies, they attempt it and the color just fades off quickly, and you have to keep it clean for it to look good, and that is not the case with this. So kudos to them. Moving on, for the aesthetic, this knife also scores a perfect 5 out of 5, as if that should be of any surprise. I think this might be one of the most beautiful knives that I've ever handled in person. It's really absolutely stunning and remarkable in so many ways, even down to the blade finish. I mean, this hand satin, absolutely beautiful. The fuller, just the simple, clean design, yet so elegant, and the added flair with the materials, and they really knocked it out of the park with this one. When it comes to the price, I gave this a 5 out of 5 because at $425 or $525, depending on which variation you get, you are truly getting your money's worth when you're comparing it to the competitive options. If you're talking about American made, you're not, for $425, you can get the premium blade steel, the premium quality tolerances and fit and finish and manufacturing. You might get the titanium, but you're not going to get fat carbon. You're not going to get anodized titanium all over it, and just not going to get any of that extra fancy stuff. It's going to be plain Jane, and that's it. So to make that American knife into, say, a configuration like this, you're looking at an additional several $100s. So you really are getting your money's worth with this, and that's why I also gave it a 5 out of 5 when it comes to the value. For the fit and finish, we also get a perfect 5 out of 5. The fit and finish on this knife is excellent. It's absolutely top notch, very impressive, and to be honest with you, I don't think it could really get much better than this. This is damn near perfect. For the acoustics, this knife also gets a perfect 5 out of 5. It has a really unique sound and a nice loud thwack, as well as a nice closing sound. Now, the reason for that nice unique thwack sound is because as the blade deploys, when the detent drops down off of the blade, it makes a little click, and then when the lock bar engages, you get that second click. So both of those clicks in rapid succession sounds like that, and that sound is very satisfying, as well as the drop. Now for the lockup, also perfect 5 out of 5. We have approximately 35% lockup, absolutely no lock stick, and no play. Easy to disengage. That brings me to my next category, which is the lock bar access. And the lock bar is not raised up any higher in relation to the show side, but we do have this little lip or pocket milled out, which gives you just enough space to get the meat of your thumb down into there and slide it on over. And due to not having a really late lockup, you don't have to push the lock bar over very far to disengage it, So they did an excellent job with that. For the fidget factor, I had to give this a 4 out of 5, which was really difficult to decide that because this knife is very fidgetable, but the thing is, there's not really too many means of deployment unless you are really good at spidey flicking. You can reverse flick this if you put your middle finger down low on the fuller, but it took even myself a good bit of practice and messing around with it to get that down. Besides that, you have the flipper tab, which does get a little bit uncomfortable over time with repetitive deployment. So, the first handful of times you do it, it's not going to be an issue. If your finger is well calloused and everything, then you might not have an issue ever. But it does feel to me like it definitely could get a little bit irritating for some people, and that's just an unfortunate unintended consequence of making a functional, reliable design that your finger will grip onto no matter what. The other issue is that it does not drop closed on its own, but that is really not much of an issue because this knife is very smooth still. And for our next category, overall design, it also gets a 5 out of 5. This knife is simple yet also very elegant, and the design is just effective. It's useful. You have a very useful handle that's going to be ergonomic and comfortable to just about everyone, no matter what size hands you have. I have a large size hand getting close to the extra large area, and I have plenty of room, and it just fits my hand like a glove. I feel locked in, very, very comfortable. The blade shape is very good. They cleared the plunge grind. Every aspect of this design just works and is good choices for this specific design. So, next category, materials. Another perfect 5 out of 5. We have Arctic Storm Fat Carbon Show Size Scale. We have the Moco Timascus. We have the blue anodized titanium hardware and backspacer. We have the fat carbon inlay on the titanium lock side, and we have the Timascus pocket clip and pivot collars. We have the steel lock bar insert, and we have a M390 blade. We have a ceramic detent, I believe, and we have multi-row ceramic bearings. So they knocked it out of the park when it comes to materials. This is pretty much, it's them showing off like, hey, look at what we can do. They really integrated the best of everything all into one knife right here, and it really shines. The next category, blade steel, M390, excellent choice, excellent edge retention, excellent corrosion resistance, good toughness, not too hard to sharpen. It's a perfect choice for an EDC steel. So, you can't really go wrong with M390. A lot of the premium high-end knives are being made with M390 because it's a really good all-around blade steel. So no matter what the person is using it for, no matter what area of the country they live in and the climate around them, no matter what, you can't really go wrong with it. So it's a safe choice, and it's also a good performing steel. For the centering, we also have a perfect 5 out of 5. It stays centered after disassembling this knife, and it also stays centered even if I was to loosen up this pivot screw right here all the way. That blade still stays dead center. which is really impressive and just goes to show you how well they did when it comes to the tolerances. And that takes me to the next category, which is the tolerances, which is also a perfect 5 out of 5, because as you can see, they are very good. There's no type of play in any direction whatsoever. Everything just fits so nicely together and works very well. So they did really good with that. The blade grind gets a perfect 5 out of 5. I really like this fuller they did. The blade grind and finish is absolutely beautiful. The grind is even and symmetrical on both sides. We have the nice thumb ramp with the well spaced out, not too sharp and aggressive jimping, and the edge clears the plunge grind by enough to where you can get many sharpenings out of this blade before you have to worry about running into that plunge grind and creating a smile. So excellent job when it comes to this grind. I wish I could tell you how it cuts, but this knife is not a user, unfortunately, so I can't really give you my opinion on that. But based off of my knowledge and experience with other knives, I would say this knife probably cuts pretty good. I don't think it's going to be the highest performing slicer, but I do think it would cut very well. The factory edge gets a perfect 5 out of 5. It's nice, clean, simple. It's probably like 25 to 20 degrees per side, depending on the thickness behind the edge. And it does come down relatively thin, not super thin, but yeah, it's probably like 25 degrees, which is pretty common for a lot of knife manufacturers. Keeps that bevel nice and small. I prefer a lower angle so that the knife can initiate the cut and just slice better, but they at least were able to give you a nice even bevel. Try to get this to zoom in. Focus. Nice even bevel. Symmetrical on both sides. Nice pointy tip. And it is sharp from tip to heel. It does get a teeny bit wider right at the tip, but that has to do with the change in thickness, because as you come from this point up to here, you do increase the thickness a little bit to keep that strength at the tip. So that's not an issue whatsoever. And finally, the last category, closing. Closing, it gets a 4 out of 5, and that's because it is not drop shut. But it still gets a high score because it's extremely smooth, and it can shut by just gently shaking it. So I don't like waiting that long, so I just kind of give it a little inertia to get going, where I kind of drop my hand and then stop, and that does the job. So, or you can kind of sling it in, however you want to do it. But just a fair warning, this is not drop shut, even with skiff bearings and gunny glide, the whole 9 yards. And the reason for that is not because this knife is not smooth or anything like that. It's just because it has a good bit of lock bar tension. Now, if I take that lock bar tension away, this blade drops free, as you can see, and it would be a complete guillotine. It's only that lock bar tension that keeps this blade from dropping like a guillotine. Now, you could experiment with some different pivot lubes and oils, and see if maybe you can get it to perform better. I have not been able to try the new GUNNY slides from Scott Gunn, but that's on the way, so that might be arriving within the next couple days, and I'm going to try that out. That is a special formula. It's a little bit thicker, and it's designed for detents and firearms, so we'll see how that does. But all in all, this is a very impressive knife, and I am very thankful for the opportunity to check this out. So once again, big shout out to Mike Bean. I met him over at the MILLIE Club. We've become good friends, and he is a great guy. So thank you, Mike, and thank you everybody for watching. I love you guys, and hope you stay tuned, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.